This is the Extra Mile.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Extra Mile. I don't know why I pointed at you. I'm Justin, and that's G5. What's up, George?
Aces.
Aces.
I deserved that. Caleb, he's in his corner.
Good morning.
Caleb's corner.
Yeah, I tried to make a jingle.
Yeah, I was
and
looking for it.
I realized I cannot sing by myself.
What are you talking about?
Well, you know how people do the whole mix thing where they do the auto-tune and they put their voice over each other, like even a cappella music where the people film themselves and do all the different parts. And man, I really should play what I recorded because it was so bad. It was like I got the one key right and then all the other parts, it was off key. And so it was like, Caleb's corner.
Good.
We'll just take what he's just saying. Just cut it.
Yeah, there we
Put it
go.
on there. Yeah, there we
Splice
go.
it up.
Yeah.
Splice it up.
I don't know. We're about being real here.
Yeah, nobody
Transparent.
wants to listen to that in the morning.
I think it's a great wake up. Sounds like
Yeah.
a train horn. Like
No.
the people on the road are like, oh, is there a train coming for me? I'm just getting over being sick, so I apologize.
Well,
Yeah, welcome back.
Oh, man.
You thought a train, but I thought the guy in Goonies. But it's fine.
Sloth? Love that guy.
I'm not gonna even try
Sloth
that.
love Chunk.
Baby Ruth that.
Baby.
It's gonna be a short, and then
When
I'm
was
gonna
the last time you had a Baby Ruth candy bar?
Halloween usually the only time they're available. I don't go into the store and get a Baby Ruth.
Yeah.
If I go in the store and I'm craving a candy, I get two things. If I go to the movies, I'll get these two things. I'll get either a Snickers or a peanut M&M. Those are my two go-tos.
I think that I'm the same way about the peanut M&Ms. I love them.
Yeah, they're classic. They taste good, feel good.
I like them better than the regular M&Ms.
I do too.
My wife's the opposite. She loves the regular M&Ms.
Regular M&Ms are just, they kind of just feel like a Hershey's color-coded.
Yeah, color-coded Hershey's.
Yeah.
What's your opinion
Caramel.
about this?
Caramel M&Ms.
Oh, man.
So when they were going
Special
crazy for a second with all their flavors, I was really into the coffee nut M&Ms. If M&M, someone you're listening, please bring that back.
Coffee nut.
Coffee nut was so good. It was just so good. I would eat those all the
So
time.
instead of a peanut, it's a coffee
No,
bean?
it's still a peanut.
Here.
I think I remember. Yeah. I mean, I would be down with that. I was actually hoping that's what it was, but I remember it was a peanut, but it was with coffee flavor.
This is Pike Place.
But that would be cool. A coffee bean M&M.
A coffee bean M&M.
I would take that. I'd buy that.
I think people would die. It'd be worse than the lemonade epidemic at Panera. Did you hear about that?
What?
They were selling lemonade at Panera Bread, which coincidentally sidebar. Side note, I'm sick. Bear with me. Patience. That they had some lemonade that they were selling at the Panera Bread, and this poor lady was drinking their lemonade, and she ended up dying from a caffeine overdose because apparently they have caffeine in the lemonade.
Oh, yeah.
It's like
actually
supercharged.
did know that. Yeah.
I thought it was impossible to die of a caffeine overdose.
Well, this poor chick had some type of thing, and it hurt her,
And,
and it like killed her.
Apparently, it's not just the lemonade. It's like that whole section where they've got all the different flavors that look like lemonade on that section of the wall. They're all caffeinated, and they're like crazy high caffeine count.
Really?
They're just like drugging yourself
Like,
with stimulants.
I'll go to Tea to Go, and they have caffeinated type things like that.
I don't know. I feel like there's more to the story.
Do they?
There has to be. She has to have had like.
No, she had like a predisposed
Yeah,
heart
yeah.
condition or something. Didn't know about. But there's not a warning saying
Yeah.
danger
Caffeine.
if you drink
Caffeine.
80 ounces of this in one sitting because you're psychotic and in school or whatever.
The last thing
It's not
you're
her
expecting at Panera Bread when you get a lemonade
Is
is
to
to have
die.
caffeine.
Oh.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Or to die.
Yeah, I mean that's the last thing on my mind is me just dropping dead from my beverage.
Yeah, except for the beverage part. That's usually not the last thing on my mind, though.
At the Panera, at the bread.
Yeah.
That's the sidebar is that it's Panera, which means bread. And then the official store name is Panera Bread, so it's bread.
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 Really?
Yeah, Panera.
Interesting.
Means bread.
I like their bread bowls.
The bread bowls.
Yeah, I'll get their bread bowls with a side of bread.
The bread bowls.
Panera bread bowls.
Yeah, the bread bowls.
Yeah.
This is a good bit. I like it. Do I ruin the YouTube shorts by saying that it's a YouTube short?
Yes. No, I'm just kidding.
That's okay. We'll edit out my coughing. Sorry. What were we talking about?
Well, I mean, that was probably a good segue
To bread bowls?
talk about your story.
No, it's not. Well, my story is very recently I had a very good friend of mine from high school. He passed away. He was 38. He had a heart attack. His name was Michael Tucker. And I love Mike. And he was a very kind soul. And I wanted to sort of lament. It was a wake-up kind of call. I hadn't really been in close contact with my friends from high school. We'd sort of let our lives, sort of
For sure.
drift apart. And it was a nice reminder of why we were friends rather than like why we all wanted to grow up. And so it was nice to it was really sad and shocking to have like my friend die of a heart attack, at 38. And it made me really sad because it was so sudden. But some of the qualities that Michael had, I would really say in my youth, growing up, I really gravitated toward them because he was a storyteller. And he is a storyteller. Like, he came up with things. We were playing Dungeons and Dragons together. He was one of my really core friends. And such a creative mind, always interested in laughing. Always interested in having a good time and being inclusive. And this was in, 2000, 2004, 2008, that sort of time range when we were really close. And there's something about someone, whether in the faith or out or in the world or in your everyday life or at work, someone that you encounter in your life that all they want to do is laugh and bring joy and tell stories to make people laugh. And these aren't like, it's not the kind of stories that would make you feel bad or anything like that. It was always to try to bring some type of punchline to lighten the mood and to bring people together. He was a cook. And he loved cooking for people. And food, as we all know, is kind of one of the main things that bring people together. So
it does.
We cook and we share food and
Throughout the entire Bible.
Yeah, and you sit down and you have fellowship over food.
Yeah.
And I would say that in my reflection of who Michael was to me is very much a person who exemplified many of the characteristics of being a Christian, being someone who Jesus was. And I don't know if he meant to do that or if that's just how his heart was programmed. But he taught me so much about how to look at people, how to be accepting of others, and how to just love people for the fact that they're another breathing person. And I'm kind of sad to say that I don't know if I got very much of that growing up in the church. And so it really is kind of an eye-opener of, sometimes I think that people can do a lot of harm when they're not necessarily willing to fully love others. Mm-hmm. Whenever they get a little maybe scared or blind to like wanting to sin. We've talked a lot about like the fear-faith concept in the church and things like that, where it's really easy for people to like put up walls and barricades of I'm not going to do this so that I don't sin.
Right.
And that I really think that leads to, because you build up walls to protect yourself, you're actually ostracizing people from getting in. Mm-hmm. And you can do a lot of harm that way, in my solemn critique of that. And Michael was one of those people that just lived being a person who brings people together. And it doesn't matter, kind of what color their hair is or what life crisis they're going through. He always was able to find things that would bring people together and like didn't tolerate people fighting, stuff like that. That's just kind of the character that he was.
He would tear down those walls.
Yeah, and had a predisposition to really being able to reach across the table actually and saying like, come on, join us. And then we would have a new person in our group. And then we would have a new person in our group. And then we'd have a new person in our group. And then somebody would leave, to go to school or whatever. And then a new person would join the group,
It's awesome.
And that's a testament to him as a person, as a quality of someone who just likes people and likes to bring people in and be inclusive. And so it's a thing that we should really champion. I think not only for what we've been talking about recently on the podcast episodes, bringing people to the kingdom, bringing people in.
Reaching our hand out. Right?
Absolutely. And just being like, no. And I think what Neil was saying is like a critique of just sort of like the emotional struggle of being somebody who's trying to seek after healing. Mm-hmm. The great physician can heal us. Jesus is the great healer. And because there's grace and acceptance there, right? It doesn't matter what you've done. And that's hard. That's a hard pill to swallow because some people have done very evil things. But I think that the salvation and the grace that God offers everyone is quite simply, it's open for the taking. Jesus is that. Jesus is always reaching out. He's the father of the prodigal son. Come unto me. And that's something that I think if we're not that, if we are predisposed to be shy, as I am, and this is me boasting in the weakness, right? I am so shy. It's off-putting, I think, in a critique of myself because I'm not able to comfortably reach out to people and like give a smile, and because I care about people, but I really don't want to talk to you.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way as an introvert. Neil was talking about being in the aisle, right?
Right.
Yeah, just like talk to the person next to you.
Yeah.
But I resonate with his wife. Like, I don't want to bother that person because, one, I don't want to be bothered right now.
Right.
Like, you don't want to be in my headspace. I don't want to take what's in my headspace and put it in yours.
Well, and I think that we should.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I'm right. That's just how I feel.
Well, and maybe the time is really not the place in the aisle of, while everybody's trying to get out and go to lunch or whatever. Yeah. But maybe that is the time. Or maybe the time is, during the week. And that's another sort of critique of the church, is that the ability to have fellowship with friends. And I could continue to reiterate that this podcast is really a solid opportunity to just have a scheduled coffee chat. And yeah, the byproduct is we record it, and hopefully it's edifying to some people who might listen to it.
For sure.
But it's ultimately edifying to me to be able to sit here and have these conversations, because it gets your mind on God, it gets your mind on the world, it gets your mind on how I need to be as a person whenever I leave this room, and how I need to behave through all of the triggers and all of the what the Bible calls is the fiery darts of the devil, shooting at you, like the 300 scene where they're going to blot out the sun. All the arrows will blot out the sun. Then we will fight in the shade. Such a great line. Such a great line. Then we will fight in the shade.
You say it so much better.
Not as good as Michael Fassbender. That dude is, he can deliver a line.
Yeah, I just realized who that was. He was pretty young there.
He was very young.
Yeah.
Michael Fassbender, man.
Yeah.
Fight in the shade. I'm going to play Magneto soon. It's true. He said that on set. I saw that. They had to cut that out.
That's hilarious.
We've derailed the podcast. We'll edit this out. It's fine.
Anyway.
But I think that's the That's the thing that we need to do is we need to be able to reach across the table like Mike would do. And I mean that physically as well. And I mean that spiritually as well. Where how do you reach out to your brother and show them that you care? And I mean, I think you actually have to actually care, number one. And that's really sort of the first step, is that if your heart, you can't just fake being nice, you know?
No, you can't fake being nice, just like you can't fake listening. People can feel if you're listening. There's a feeling there. Same with niceness.
A feeling of listening?
Yeah. When you're talking to someone and you know they're not listening, you can feel that. There's a feeling there. But when you tell that they're listening, oh man, I could just feel that this person is actually listening to what I say. It changes the entire conversation. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
It's Winn-Dixie.
Wait, what did you say?
It's Winn-Dixie.
It's Winn-Dixie.
No,
It's a good book. Anyway.
They say that when actors talk about acting, about good actors, who are the best actors? You know, there's some who have their processes, but engaging with someone on stage, or they say that the technique is simply that you're listening, but the trick is that you already know what you're supposed to say next, and so you have to. I guess you make believe that you hear the line. You hear what your playmate is saying, and then you respond. You hear it, and then you respond to it with the line that you know, and then you have to just pretend that you're hearing it for the first time, and that you're coming up with the next line to say.
I feel like The Office was really good at that.
About just ad-libbing like that?
Yeah. Or just, it just feels like sometimes, surely they know the next line, but they say the next line and someone in the corner is cracking up or dying. And it's just it's scripted, but it doesn't feel scripted. And I think that's the point, right?
I think a lot of that was improv as well. I mean, life is improv. I think that's the thing to recognize about acting.
That's a good point. Life is improv.
Life is improv.
We want to then script it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same thing that goes with your evangelism thing as well. If I could just have a script, maybe it'd be easier on me, but I could also get so many people to come to Jesus. But people are going to respond to a script. Like you were saying, they're going to respond to that niceness, that genuineness. The problem is people can also feel when things are awkward. And I have I'm good at making things awkward. Just like,
and I am too. I like sort of dropping an ounce of blood in the water and seeing everybody squirm a little bit.
Watching Caleb's awkward face.
I really enjoy it. I really enjoy it. You want some more coffee?
Yes. One thing I've been thinking about is that I really like to tell stories, and I'm the complete opposite of y'all. I'm an extreme extrovert.
I love that about you.
But I love.
That's why we have to put you in the corner.
Over here by myself. Everything's fine. But I love talking to people. I love meeting new people. But sometimes when there's a lull, my problem is that immediately I just start trying to think of like something that's happened recently that's a funny story, just to try to relate to them and like figuring out some way to tell it. But that's all about myself. So I'm still really bad about it. But if I can make a conscious effort to ask them more questions about themselves, the problem is always thinking about the next question. So sometimes I'm listening to them and I'm processing what they're saying, but then I'm trying to think about what am I going to say next. And that's a constant battle for me because I don't know. I don't know if it's the same way for y'all or not, but I'm trying to listen, but then I'm already thinking about like, oh, what am I going to say next? So sometimes it comes naturally depending on the person. Other times, if it's somebody I've never met before or just a little bit awkward to talk to, then I'm like, and I'm always just trying to think of what to say next. But if I can ask a question, have them talk about themselves, then it always usually works out better because everybody likes to talk. Everybody likes to kind of share what's in their life.
I agree. Getting people to talk about themselves or talk about something that they're interested in. I found that if I can get you to talk about something that you're interested in, I have no problems asking questions over and over and over and over again. That's what I like to do with Wes, if you're listening. He talks about sports. I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. So I'll just ask the dumbest questions. And I just like it. I mean, it's a good conversation. I end up actually learning.
It's a narrative trope.
So it is good. It is good.
There's always that character in the book
love you, Wes.
that doesn't know what's going on. And they have to ask questions.
There's always a Joey in every group.
Joey.
And, They
have to explain it to the audience, but it's actually a mechanism so that the audience is brought along.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, like, I don't know have you ever seen the movie that has Russell Crowe and Paul Bettany in it? It's the Master and Commander on the Far Side of the World.
Such a good,
Have you ever seen
underrated movie. Yeah.
Have you seen that?
What's it called again?
Sorry. Master and
Master and
Commander.
Commander.
Master
I'm
and
sorry, I'm
Commander,
very
the Far
tired
Side
this
of the World.
morning. Master and Commander of the World. It sounds
Master and
familiar.
Commander, the Far Side of the World.
Oh,
Yeah, just look it up. It's from like the early 2000s.
Yeah. When Russell Crowe was doing good stuff.
Oh man, that dude was on top of it.
He
top of the world.
was killing it.
But that's actually the movie is sort of a conglomerate of like 8 or 9 stories from multiple books.
Shame. You should watch it.
In a, huh?
I haven't seen it.
Oh, you haven't seen
But
it?
I'll look
It's really good. It's like man movie.
And it's pretty clean, right?
It's very clean.
Yeah, it's super good. Just a good story.
And that's from a series of books. I guess it's called. It's not called anything, but the first book in the series is Master and Commander, and there's 20 novels, and then there's a 21st unfinished novel that Patrick O'Brien, the author, died before he could finish it. And so, of those 20 books, it's about this Napoleonic era British naval officer and his best friend, who is also a surgeon. But then, without any spoilers, each of them have closets that's, goes very deep, walk-in closets worth of skeletons that they sort of uncover through the life of the books, and they're fantastic. And several of those really highfalutin moments is in that movie. And I actually don't know why I brought the movie up, but because we were talking about something.
Well, I mean, that's interesting you say that. I mean, that's what the sea will do, right? It'll bring out all of those skeletons in the closet.
Bingo. Okay, so the reason why I brought that up is because the Stephen character, there's the Jack Aubrey character who Russell Crowe plays in the movie, but the Jack Aubrey character is the naval officer, and then the surgeon is Stephen Maturin. And Stephen is completely ignorant of naval ways.
Right.
In the book, and they show it in the movie a couple times too. And so you have these naval officers talking about naval jargon, like being on the sea, about the guns and this and that, and we have to come to, and just all of these words, these phrases that it's just like this another language. And so Stephen is a very competent doctor and surgeon, philosopher, naturalist, and completely ignorant of things of the sea. And so as a mechanism for the story, Stephen constantly asks like entry-level seafaring questions like, wait, what's a bosun chair? And then they're all like, do we need to tell you again, Stephen? Like, Dr. Maturin, how many times have we told you this? But it's a mechanism for the audience to not be completely lost.
Interesting.
Because there's a character who's very competent at their profession, be thrust into a world where they know nothing, and almost be a prisoner on a ship, and they're near the Galapagos or something, they're just across the world, and then to be completely ignorant is like, well, they're talking about the weather gauge. What is that? And then you're sitting there as a reader going, I have no idea what they're talking about. And then Stephen says, what is the weather gauge? And then they have to explain it to the poor doctor because he doesn't quite remember. And then now we're caught up. And so it's an interesting mechanism in a story and a narrative for people to kind of be brought along, to have that hand reached out to them, So anyway, it's an interesting narrative trope. I don't know why I brought that up. Now we know.
Yeah, trying to figure out.
Is there anything in the Bible that's like that, where it's sort of like, y'all come along? Like, what is this? It seems like a lot of the teaching of Jesus is like that, where it's very simplistic.
For sure. But there's a lot of repeat. I've noticed that in the book of Luke. Now that I've read it, chapter by chapter, and
like studied it.
Yeah. It's like phrases that are mentioned over and over again.
Interesting. Like
that
what?
I never realized. Like with man,
With man.
Yeah, with man, everything is. How's it go? With man, nothing is possible. With God, yeah, anything is possible, or something like that. How's that go? You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
No, I'm intrigued though.
Oh my goodness! Wait.
I don't think the coffee's good. The coffee good?
All right. Yeah, with man, with man that is possible, but with God all things are possible. With God all things are possible.
Mm-hmm.
You guys heard that, right? Okay. That phrase is mentioned several times in the book of Luke alone. It's also mentioned in 19. The point is, there's just a repetition there.
Luke was a physician, though.
Yeah, he was a physician.
Interesting.
And so there's this constant, oh yeah, that's right. I remember he said that a few chapters ago in this context. Now he's saying it again in this context. It's like, okay, that makes sense. And so there's a few other phrases too. Maybe I should do that. Maybe I should put them all together. But you kind of get this idea, oh, okay, kingdom of heaven, kingdom of God, okay. What's important?
You should absolutely highlight that. That'd be a fantastic lesson.
But yeah, I noticed that there's a few phrases like that. I don't know.
I mean, I've seen that just coming out of the Bible. And I think it's also narrative voice, I think that there was something in Luke's heart that definitely came out, that the Spirit sort of ignited.
Oh yeah, the other phrase was the first will be last and the last will be first.
Yes.
Well, later it's repeated again, but it's repeated differently. So it will say, well, the greatest will be
the least,
and the least will be the greatest. Mm-hmm. Or those who have won't have, and those who don't have will have. Mm-hmm. It's the same concept and the same theme, and it's repeated within different context. And it really makes those phrases a lot more rich, and you get a better understanding. It's bringing you along to, oh, okay, that point is important. That point's important again. Mm-hmm. It's showing the reader what to focus on. There you go. That's what I was going to say.
Those specifically, it's almost like a paradox. You can think logically where, okay, if I want to have more things, I have to work hard, and I have to go out and I have to sacrifice, and I have to go out and beat the bushes, and I have to pound sand, and I have to do the business, and then I'll get it. Mm-hmm. Well, that's possible in the realm of man. Absolutely. It's the American dream, right? We go out and we work hard, and we take our triple shifts, and we sacrifice time away from our family, and we do what we can to make money. And then you almost look at the paradox of the Bible and you say, well, I think there's enough evidence in the Bible to say, like, what if you just gave all your money away? God will give you more.
Yeah.
If you have a heart that is inclined to give away, God's going to give you more to give away.
I think there's some truth to that. Honestly, I kind of struggle with this concept a little bit.
Me too.
Like you're talking about, there is this sense, I can pull up my bootstraps, I can manifest destiny, my life, but at the same time, I've seen people work so hard and gain so little.
Mm-hmm. But then, like, what happens if we gain the whole world?
Well, yeah, what's the point? Right. There is, I mean, imagine if everyone worked, just as hard for the kingdom. And, it'd be pretty special.
It's not a critique as much as it is just a question of exploration, right? So what are we supposed to be doing? Because I don't know. I mean, I really don't. I search and things in the scripture. It says these things. But then you also think, well, that's a bit of a leaping off point, to say, well, like, you look at the first century Christians and, like, they were buying their property, giving to others so there wasn't any
sharing.
need.
Yeah, they were sharing everything.
And why wouldn't you? Right?
And Jesus told the rich ruler to sell everything you have and give to the poor, because he knew that was like the crux of the matter of where his heart was at.
He liked his stuff.
So, like, okay, if you're going to actually follow me, it requires that you, because of your heart and where it's at, all is required.
Mm-hmm.
While take Zacchaeus, for example, all was not required. In fact, we don't even know if he continued to be a tax collector or not. We don't know that knowledge, but it seems like maybe he did. And so what was required of him was, you give half to the poor, but then the other half, then now he has to spend fourfold doing right by those that he harmed, which I imagine would wipe out that other half, which probably leaves him with almost nothing. But he continues being a tax collector. And so there is this crux, like in our heart, that we need to figure out, and just kind of be like, okay, what is it going to take for me to actually change and follow Jesus? And it might be an extreme thing. I will say that's the truth between both the rich ruler and Zacchaeus. It is extreme. Does that require something extreme from us? I don't know.
I think that's the call anyway. The call is to be changed.
Be changed.
Like, you have to kill your old man.
Mm-hmm.
Not physically. We don't want to do self-harm, but we have to put to death the spiritual evilness inside of us, the selfishness, the things that we look after, that call inside of us to be the greatest.
Well, this is why I said, this will tie it back to evangelism, so it works out. But this is why I really wanted to make a point about Jesus' kingship and the gospel message. Is we hear the phrase, deny yourself, put your old self to death all the time, and we say that with this idea that you've got to kill sin and, change your heart. And yeah, all of that's true, but we don't actually say what that really means. It's that I'm giving up ownership of my life. If I give up ownership of my life, who then has ownership of my life? Jesus has ownership of my life as ruler and king. Like, that's the foundation of the gospel. I was trying to make that point in my last sermon. Like, if Jesus isn't king, the crucifixion and the resurrection doesn't matter. What's the sign say above Jesus on the cross? This is Jesus the Christ. This is the Messiah. This is the King of the Jews. Right? It's the king. So you see the king come in, you see the king on the cross, the king is going to be resurrected, and the king is going to sit on the right hand of the throne of God. If he's not king, none of that matters. And so I think sometimes, tie this back to evangelism, having a heart that wants to tell people about Jesus, we walk around in the grocery store, wherever we're at, and we're like, I have this secret knowledge, and I have to tell people about it. And if I don't tell anyone about it, they're not really living up to their fullest potential in their real lives. But what we should be telling people is, look, I can't rule my life well, and I'm sure you've made mistakes and you've made poor decisions as well. Once you realize you aren't the real ruler of your life, Jesus is what fills that gap. He's the ruler. He's the king. And that's the foundation of the gospel message. That's much easier to evangelize to someone who's maybe in the aisle next to you, if that's what you want to do, than to say, look, you're a sinner. God just cleaned you of your sins. Jesus is there to cleanse you of your sins. Now you got to break down what sin means, why they feel like such a horrible person, and all the religious baggage that comes behind those words. But to tell you, look, Jesus can rule your life much better than you can, a lot easier to do. And it's biblically based. It's the foundation of the gospel. There you go.
That's well said. I have nothing else.
Okay, well, if you have nothing else, I don't either. So, go so. If you want to know more about the Bible or you have any questions, our email is in the description below. You can DM us. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're looking for a church family or you're in the Lubbock area, we invite you to come visit and hang out with us in Milwaukee. We love for you to find a church who practices the love of Christ.